countless eyewitnesses had described. These specialist shots of satellites show just how easy it is to mistake these man-made objects for UFOs. In fact, satellites were behind many of the hundreds of UFO sightings Nick had received every year at the Ministry of Defense. But not this time. The early warning radars confirmed that on the night in question, there were no satellites in the sky above Britain whose orbits matched the very detailed eyewitness reports of a giant triangular craft. Nick turned next to another suspect. The radar also records the thousands of tons of space debris orbiting the Earth, the collected remnants of 40 years of space exploration. Could the eyewitnesses have seen the re-entry of space junk? Sure enough, the records revealed a likely culprit. From radar readouts, he discovered that the spent booster rocket from the Russian spacecraft Cosmos 2238 had re-entered the Earth's atmosphere at the same time as some of the high-altitude UFO sightings.
Cosmos 2238 had been launched the night before, and the booster rocket had re-entered the Earth's atmosphere.
The booster rocket seemed to be in the right place at the right time.
Cosmos 2238's booster might well have been visible from parts of Devon and Cornwall, and indeed the object would have been coming in on a southeasterly bearing, and some of the times matched too. It really did begin to look as if we had an explanation.
David Clark, UFO investigator and writer for Fortean Times, has seen Nick Pope's investigation records. He agrees with Nick that Cosmos 2238 offered a solution to Britain's closest encounter.
If you look at what most witnesses described, two very bright white lights in the sky moving very, very rapidly across the sky with a trail coming out behind these things, which was the burning ion trail of the debris re-entering the atmosphere. Some other people described seeing a third light, and this is where you get the effect of people immediately wanting to see patterns in things that are random, in that they see three lights, and naturally at night, if you see three lights, you think, are they three separate objects, or are they three lights on a very large object, a triangular shaped object, if you see three lights apparently flying in formation? And you can see that this is where a lot of the idea about there being a triangular UFO came from. This thing that was seen on the 31st of March 1993, it's one of the few cases that we can actually say with certainty what was seen, and I can say with certainty that what was seen was part of a Russian satellite booster rocket that burnt up on re-entry. That was the UFO in this case. We can put a definite full stop on this one.
But Nick Pope was not convinced that the case could be closed completely. A hunch that would prove to be right. Investigations into a strange UFO across Britain on the night of March 30th, 1993, revealed a very ordinary explanation for this phenomenon. Booster rockets from a Russian spacecraft had re-entered the Earth's atmosphere at the right place at the right time. But on closer examination, Nick Pope found that this explanation was deeply flawed.
Cosmos 2238 most certainly could explain some of the sightings that night, probably the high-altitude sightings at 1:10 but what it couldn't do is explain the whole event. It couldn't explain the sightings that took place at different times. It couldn't explain the sightings which were clearly of a structured craft at low altitude.
The powerful radio telescope at Jodrell Bank Observatory in Cheshire has been scanning the heavens for 50 years, most recently with the remit to actually look for signs of extraterrestrial life. Its director is Ian Morrison. He agrees that Cosmos cannot offer the solution to this mystery.
Sometimes people see a pattern of lights that stay pretty much in formation for maybe several minutes at a time. To be honest, I don't believe that can be the breakup of space junk or anything else. Those things are very short-lived, and they all leave streaks, and the relative positions may well change as they travel at different speeds through the atmosphere.
At best, Cosmos 2238 may explain some of the first wave of high-altitude UFO reports Nick had received on the morning of March 31st, 1993. But they could not explain the far more troubling wave of sightings, the massive black triangle seen flying at low level near two of Britain's military bases earlier that same night. Hundreds of witnesses called the police, military bases, and the Ministry of Defense to report this UFO. But there were still many more who experienced this event and remained silent. Like Estelle Burridge, a local resident. She was passing RAF Shawbury in Shropshire at about 10 o'clock on the night of March the 30th. What she saw in the sky will live with her forever.
About 1.5 miles into my journey, I saw flashing lights to the right-hand side of me across the sky. I thought it was lightning, but I glimpsed across and there was all these bright lights, and they were making a noise like electric cables, crackling, buzzing, and I believe they were all connected up into one, making a craft. And I thought, goodness me, you know, all these lights, they're like in an angle shape, flashing all the time. And it was so clear, and I just looked up into the sky and all these lights, and I just wanted to go home, you know. I've never seen anything like it before and never seen anything like it since.
Estelle's description matched what other eyewitnesses had reported seeing further to the south. A massive black triangular object, flying at low level and capable of superhuman speeds. There were many things that made this UFO incident unlike anything Nick Pope had ever dealt with. In particular, the quality of the witnesses. Many of these he classified as expert, including military personnel and police officers. These expert observers spoke to him because he was MOD. That they spoke at all was what Nick found most extraordinary. In his experience, people from the forces, military and civilian, are extremely reluctant to report UFOs for fear of professional ridicule. Detective Constable Gary Heseltine is one of Britain's most highly trained witness assessment specialists and has been involved in London's 7/7 terrorism investigations. He's compiled a database of police officers who have witnessed UFO incidents, and he believes that these reports are factual and credible.
Police officers do not suffer fools gladly. And if they say they saw something and they stand up and be counted, they pretty much tell it as it is, because they're used to doing duty reports, they're used to giving statements that illustrate things in a chronological way as if it was presented in court. The culture of the police officer is this. It's a select club, for want of a better word, but once you're in there, you develop a reputation. You do not stand up and raise your head above the parapet unless you are sincere, because you will absolutely get crucified by your fellow officers if it wasn't true.
The statements from all of Nick Pope's key experts from the night of March 30th, 1993, including serving police officers, are contained in the case file. These reports included one of the most powerful and convincing witness accounts of a UFO Nick had ever experienced. It came from 2 RAF police officers on duty at RAF Cosford on the night of March the 30th and the early hours of March the 31st. This is an extract from the original statement. On 31st of March, 1993, I was on mobile patrol of Leeming Road adjacent to the gravel car park when I saw two bright lights in the sky above the airfield. The lights